is Monday, March 4th, 2019. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And my deepest apologies to everybody last week. Unfortunately, I was not able to get online. As a matter of fact, I did not have electricity up until about 2 days ago. So, my absence last week, while tragic for all of us, including myself, was only temporary. And so here we are again. Very relieved to finally be getting, finally back into the full swing of things. Unfortunately, it's one of those things, man. You don't have electricity, you don't have internet, you don't have heat, you don't have water. Fortunately, we did still have gas here, so I was able to heat up some snow and make water. Unfortunately, though, we live about like 300-400 yards off of the nearest road. And so I literally had to dig us out with nothing but a square head shovel. And it kind of bummed me out too, because like I got all kinds of neighbors and every single one of them has a fucking tractor of their own. But I had no assistance in what I was doing. These things, it's the way it fucking rolls out sometimes. But it's one of those things that makes me really wonder about socialism and the ideals behind it, because here we are. I'm in a world of people with ability, and not helping others to meet their needs. And so when you extend that out to a national policy, I think that's kind of where you end up. Is you end up with like a little upper crust of people that everybody's willing to help out and whatnot for whatever reason, but you end up with a lot of people without, that aren't getting any assistance of the facilities other people have available to them. So it's one of those things, man. I mean, and it's really funny to see people push socialism up here, because this place does not lend itself to socialism. The fact of the matter is that most of the people up here have to live relatively independent lives. I mean, it's not a matter of, people are just mean or whatever. It's a matter of you don't live like within 20 feet of somebody else out here in the boonies. So you got to be somewhat self-sufficient in order to swing it, And so when I'm hearing people up here talk about things like universal health care and universal we're gonna tax the rich to help everybody and whatever, a bunch of fucking bullshit, man. Taxing the rich all you want is not going to get me out of 3 feet of snow. A shovel is going to get me out of 3 feet of fucking snow, but not somebody else's wealth. Anyway, as far as getting our asses kicked, today was only my second day back to jiu-jitsu. I went on Sunday. I did not go to the early AM class because I had a bit of concern that the road would be a little bit icy from all the snow melt and whatnot. The roads have been relatively clear though, so I probably could have swung it. It's just, honestly, I set my alarms for it, but for whatever reason I did not awake. I even tried to go to bed earlier last night. I did not stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning and then try and get up at 6. It just, for whatever reason, I couldn't get up and do it. But I'm okay with it. I did manage to get into the evening class, and it was well worth it, honestly. I think you guys have heard me talk a little bit on this show how I really feel like I need to do some review with regard to the stand-up section of the fight, because despite the fact 90% of all fights end up on the ground, there is still that 10% that's standing, and there's also the aspect of the 90% that do go to the ground. About 100% of those, 97% of those start standing. So you got to be able to go from the standing to the in the guard position. And I've been really trying to avoid either being pulled straight into somebody's guard or or pulling somebody into my guard. I've been trying to work more on the actual takedown aspect because, I'm a pretty strong guy. And so I figure if I sweep somebody really hard, that's going to open up a lot of opportunity for me to establish a really dominant position right off the bat. And, so it's one of those things where I think due to my explosive nature and whatnot that it would be advantageous for me to work my fucking stand-up. Anyway, so basically starting Sunday, it seemed like sweeps have been lending themselves a little bit better to me today. And like today was another repeat of that. And we did a pair of kind of pass the keep positions from the butterfly guard. And I didn't even talk about what we actually reviewed today, but I suppose I'll get back to that. Anyway, we were doing stuff, sparring, starting from somebody, our opponent on their knees, and us in a butterfly position, and trying to sweep our opponent, or our opponent trying to pass our guard. And I think I managed to prevent my guard from being passed all the times except once. The second time, my opponent managed to pass my guard one time. And it's kind of interesting because he's a pretty tough guy, and I've actually had a lot of trouble passing his guard before. So, despite the fact he wears a white belt, I definitely get the impression that he has a little bit of wrestling experience. I won't put it on testimony in a court of law or anything like that, but I would certainly bet on it at least that he's had a little bit of previous fight experience. He's a very enthusiastic guy as far as competition. So it gives me the impression that competition is not an abnormal state for him. But I did take it a bit easier on Sunday because it was my first time back, number one, after a week. And oddly enough, I didn't gain a single pound. I was really afraid of that the additional inactivity would cause me to gain a little bit of weight. But the fact of the matter is that I was so fucking active between melting snow, digging more snow to melt, digging us out of this fucking hellhole, that, yeah, I did not gain a single pound. And also a lower amount of food. It was a bigger pain in the ass to cook stuff because you can't just throw it in the microwave. But anyway, I took it a little bit easier on the first day back because I really anticipated that I would be behind the fold with regard to my physicality and whatnot. But like I said, I got plenty of exercise in the time off, so that wasn't as big an issue as I was anticipating. But nonetheless, like I said, I took it a little easier, and the first guy that I rolled with, I gotta say, I had so much fun. I mean, I immediately swept him, and then swept him, and then swept him, and then swept him, and then swept him, and swept him, and swept him. And when it was his turn for me to be on top, I mean, yeah, it didn't work out very well. Nonetheless, I did let him kind of get in on me once or twice just to get the idea, of what's going down. And the second guy that I rolled with, very, very new to jiu-jitsu. I think he said it was his second class ever. And I definitely got the impression that was absolutely the case and that wrestling was not part of this person's background. And the reason I say that is that there's a way that somebody without any experience in wrestling or anything like that approaches wrestling, very tentatively. It's like they don't want to give you an arm, they don't want to give you a leg, they don't want to give you their neck because they don't want to get choked, they don't want to get, they very, very tentative about what their first move is. And so, this guy who's very, very fidgety and very nervous, and I mean, I didn't have any problem running through him. But I told him, I go, look, guy, this isn't the Vale Tudo. All you're trying to do is get into a full mount position. And so that's all you need to worry about right now. just trying to get into a full mount position. And so I let him. I didn't fight him as hard as I ordinarily would have, and especially when I felt like he was on the right path, where he was putting a little bit of additional pressure to the opposite side to be able to bring his leg over and whatnot. I took it a little easier then because I was trying to encourage the positive movement, you know. And like I said, he finally, like, after I told him, you know, it's like we went a couple times and then I'm like, look, dude, all you're trying to do is get full mount. Get full mount, then we'll worry about something else. But for right now, this is all we're concerned about doing. And as soon as I said that, it was like I flipped a switch and all that pressure that was on him originally was off. You know, suddenly we're like, you know, two kids wrestling or something, you know, where he's let go of this veil that there's this big pressure to, you know, to defeat me or something like that. No. Just let go of all that. Just try and get the leg over. Just try to get a full mount. And like I said, as soon as I said that to him, he immediately relaxed and he immediately got into it. And I was very, very happy that something I said like that could help somebody in that situation, you know, because I've been there too, and I think that anybody who initially takes on jiu-jitsu or wrestling like that probably feels like that too. You know, it's just something we all go through where you're so nervous and got so much pressure on yourself from you that you can't think of what to do. It's like this, it engages this like mental paralysis over your body, you know? And so, like I said, I was very, very happy that I was able to help him at least break it for that moment, you know, just give himself an opportunity to, so what if you make a fucking mistake? Big whoop-de-doo. We're not doing surgery here, we're not making macrame, we're just trying to achieve a full mount. So yeah, that was my big takeaway from the weekend. As far as today goes, like I said, I've needed more stand-up, and we covered a couple of iterations of the single leg takedown from standing, and also from the butterfly guard. And honestly, I want to say I like the butterfly guard one a little better. It's a little more desperate move because at first you're just gripping around the guy's leg and grabbing the lower part of his gi top to secure the position and retain control of the leg, and then just stand up on him. And then there's a couple iterations from there. You know, there's pulling or running the pipe, and then also grabbing the ankle from behind your leg, and then just using your leg as like a fulcrum to twist them over. And I really liked that one, you know, because I felt like for me, it was a really easy travel to do all three different positions, you know. So for one, you initiate the leg hold when they try to stand up from a seated position, you know. And so it's like as soon as you get a hold of it, though, you're in tight enough that you could conceivably like throw it over. Like say if I had your right leg and I got my left arm behind your leg and my right arm or right hand in a gable grip on it, right? And I got that really, really tight to my chest. Conceivably, I could swap it out to where I had your leg up over my right shoulder, right? And then just twist out to that side. But you can't be really tight then because you run the risk of guillotines all day long. Even though you do have the leg trapped, it's open to the one side. So they can always step over your leg or something like that, or step out from between your legs and get that guillotine in there. Nonetheless, I did really enjoy that one. I especially like the one where the adaptation where you stand up and then grab the back ankle and go from there. I kind of like that one. But I got to roll with a bit heavier belt, or big, or not heavier, because He's actually a little bit lighter than I am, despite the fact that he's about, I want to say, at least a foot taller than me. And I've rolled with him before, quite a few times actually. And so yesterday was kind of a review for me and him. And I'd asked him at the end of it, I'm like, I felt like there was a couple points where you were letting me work my way through something. He goes, nope, didn't do that at all. And I mean, he didn't even think about it. So I kind of feel like he wasn't really snowing me there. But I asked him afterward, I'm like, well, how did I do? And he goes, well, you're a hell of a lot harder to sweep now. Because I tried multiple times and I couldn't sweep you. Usually I was able to sweep you all day long. But that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. And it took me a lot longer to submit you. And it's funny because the submission that he used, I don't think we've ever even trained it before. It was this weird kind of wrench where I don't even know how to describe it. But he had the back of my elbow pushed up in this weird angle, and then it was just I just felt the pressure and a little bit of the pain, and I'm like, oh, I can't get my hand out of there. I better tap. That feels like a submission coming on. And so, like I said, he commented that it took him a great deal longer to actually get me into submission position. And so, that felt really good. We rolled for a full 5 minutes, and he is a black belt, and he has plenty of experience with regard to my style of doing things. But nonetheless, I was still able to avoid getting submitted by him, and I did manage to pass his guard too, which felt really fucking good, man. After I slipped a leg over my shoulder, over my head, and came back around, because he tried to do an arm bar on me, and I managed to keep my elbow low enough between his legs that he wasn't able to fully extend it and or retain it in an upward position. I actually managed to twist it down and pull it down just to where my elbow was just a little bit past his crotch, and so he wasn't able to just force against it. And then I navigated around to the back and secured the gift wrap. So, I felt really good about that. I mean, I think that's like maybe the second time I passed his guard ever. So, the fact that I was able to get around it this time in a 5-minute round, it felt pretty good. Anyway, it's about that time. Let's go ahead and throw down into some music. And, it's been so long. We gotta open it up with Body Count. I don't think we have a choice in the matter. So here it is. Little Ski Mask Way, First Dance, here on Coin Metal. And that was Korn with Got the Life. And sometimes you feel like you get the life, and then sometimes you don't. Anywho, oh my gosh, that's really hilarious. I just saw this on my Twitter feed. Bitcoin EDU posted this. This is anyone selling their Bitcoins for fiat. Florida man steals $33,000 worth of rare coins, cashes them in Coinstar machine for $29.30. God damn. He probably could have got more money if he actually melted them down, because them being $33,000 worth of coins, I would believe they were either gold and or silver. So yeah, he would have got more money if he had melted them down. And yeah. Anywho, I got a few things on my what do you call it? On my browser here. Got a little high, sorry. It happens. We are out here in the boonies, and it is perfectly legal here, so I can do that, Anyway, and speaking of which, that was like one of the biggest challenges of this whole no electricity debacle, was how to deal with the one or two plants that I have and keeping them alive. It was tough, but I managed. It took some unconventional thinking, but I did manage. As far as where we're going to go, I haven't the slightest clue. I spent most of the time when I came back to the internet debating, of all things, vaccination. And it's really scary to me, these people that think that you need 90% of the population vaccinated in order to get a vaccination to work. If a vaccination works, it works. That's it. There's no additional advantage of me getting vaccinated and you getting vaccinated. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're vaccinated, that's fine. If you're then vaccinated, you don't have to worry about getting infected if vaccinations are actually effective. Now, the idea that you need so many people vaccinated so that it doesn't mutate, well, that's a bunch of bullshit. It's going to fucking mutate anyway. And so, and they'll even tell you that about the flu vaccine, that they change it regularly because the virus mutates. It wants to live too. But the thing is that you have to have a nexus of conditions, going on in your body in order for you to be susceptible to a lot of diseases that are out there. You have to be exposed to it. If you're around nobody who's infected, you're not going to get exposed to it. So that's one major factor right there. 2, you could have a natural immunity to it. A natural or rather acquired immunity to it. And when I say acquired, I mean, through good diet, good exercise, good sleep, healthy sexual habits. These are the things that you do for your own physical health. Well, one of the things that it prevents is disease. When you look back to all of the pandemics that we've had, 9 times out of 10 there was some issue with regard to the population density. That the disease was able to hop and mutate and all that other bullshit because there were poor sanitation conditions. People crapping in the street, that kind of thing. There were rat infestations. Again, due to poor sanitary conditions. These things are all contributing factors. And so when people talk about vaccination, I think about it and I'm like, if you have enough carrying capacity under you, you don't really have to worry about a lot of your diseases. So, don't build shit to where people are living on top of people, on top of people, on top of people, on top of people. That's one major thing to do. Number 2, avoid things like factory farming. And when I say that, I mean like animal husbandry, such as raising cows or chickens or goats or pigs or whatever for meat in a closed confined space in a really high density area. They are always more healthy when they're able to run around and have plenty of space to jump and play and be them, But when they don't have those things, when you stack them on top of one another and you feed them weird shit like cow brains or something like that to cows, you get bad results. You get things like mad cow disease, and a major outbreak of that shit in Britain, I think it was, or one of those European countries, or that part of the globe or whatever. But yeah, they had this major outbreak because of meat where they were feeding the cows cow brains. A cow is a vegetarian, almost exclusively, and you could say that they're probably insectivorous too, because they eat the bugs as they're eating the whatever, the grass, the clover, whatever. There's always bugs on it, so to that extent they get some sort of protein, but habitually they eat vegetables, plant matter, not cow brains. So again, when we start messing with that, though, like I said, when we have them stacked, 10,000 in a fucking warehouse or something like that, and they're walking around and sleeping in their own crap, that's going to cause poor results. You're going to get things like an E. coli outbreak or some such when you engage in that kind of behavior. And so it is a matter of carrying capacity. And I think in the future, even in high-rise buildings and whatnot, we're going to start arranging for things like an indoor garden. And I really believe that in the not-so-distant future, husbandry of both animals and vegetables, and it's already happening to some extent, will creep its way back into even the biggest cities. And we're going to start factoring for that in the layout of things like apartment complexes, where you will have a designated area where it's ventilated properly and whatnot to be optimal for you to be able to grow whatever the fuck you want in there. Tomatoes, pot, strawberries, cherries, carrots. These are all things that you could grow with regular old CFL lights. They don't even have to be the heavy duty metal halide or anything like that. And so I think that's one of the things that the prohibition of cannabis will probably end up saving us on, is that through the process of it being something that we actually had to hide when we're growing, we've gotten really, really, really good at lighting places, especially indoors, and ventilating them properly, and building equipment specifically to those ends. So now when you pass that over to things like farming indoors, somebody was saying something on either Twitter or Facebook about if we were to go to a full socialist kind of system, that the kind of farming that I'm talking about would be somewhat illegal. And my communication to them was that would probably end up being one of the primary currencies, and that people would be taking everything that they learned from planting pot to planting vegetables indoors. And some of these people, I've seen some setups that would just blow your mind. That they're very small areas, but they have computerized everything indoors, as far as like the watering cycle, the humidity in the room, the temperature of the room, the intensity of the lights, the timing of the lights, everything just down to a science. And the kind of results that they get or we're getting from doing that, it's just astounding. And so I think when in those terms, it's not really difficult to imagine growing, say, tomatoes in the same fashion and being immensely successful and having a really, really kick-ass crop, at least enough to make it worth burning the electricity to grow it. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get into some crypto shit here. And I got this thing on Bitmain, and this really caught me because I've talked a lot about how hardware advances in mining, specifically mining, have had kind of a trickle-down effect where implementations or advancements that were made in mining hardware would be passed on to consumer hardware. And we have seen this to some extent, where, in trying to compete with other hardware manufacturers, organizations such as IBM, Intel, Samsung, they would be trying to get into mining, and in doing so would push miners even harder. And it seemed for the last, I want to say 2 or 3 years, this last year is kind of a lull in that action, where it seemed like people were trying to get a grips as to the actual product cycle with regard to a miner in a mining setup. Whether we're talking about a consumer end, people like you and me, or even Bitmain. What kind of standards needed to be established, and which ones were the hard and fast ones that we could kind of drift between manufacturers and stay within. So like in PCs, we would go through these iterative upgrades with regard to the dimensions of RAM architectures as well as CPU architectures, and this kind of stayed pretty consistent, where you could time your Intel purchase based on whether it was a year where they did iterative upgrades on their current line of consumer CPUs, or the next year where they would be releasing the new chip. And so, like I said, it got pretty easy to time. And every once in a while, there would be a real surprise as far as, them going from, like, I think it was like 29 nanometers down to I want to say 24 or 20. Anyway, it's been progressive since then. But with regard to mining and the development of hardware during the time that mining really took off, during like 2015, I want to say like 2014 through 2018. Kind of. I mean, at least the beginning of 2018. Where we were seeing this going on, where we'd have miners coming out that were 16 nanometer, and we'd have some that were coming out that were 7 nanometer, or 10 nanometer, and all the way down to 7 nanometer. And this has been a product of these organizations having to go onto their R&D shelf and pull shit out that they did not intend to release for like another 5 or 6 years. But this competition for the miner money has driven them to pull so much shit off of that R&D shelf that they don't have anything left. They're having to reload it. Okay? And it got all the way down to 7 nanometers before everybody said, oh, okay, I don't think we can consistently make these much smaller than this for right now with the current technologies that we have available, so this is where we're going to settle. And that's starting to come into CPUs, where they are starting to get it down to 10 and 7 nanometers. But for the most part, I think they're still up there around 14 to 16 or something like that. But anyway, I've been saying that the competition for mining spend has been causing these organizations to dig deeper and deeper into that trove. Again, into stuff that they weren't going to plan to release for another, 3 to 5 years. And mining just completely threw that off. But anyway, I got this article here on Bitmain.com. Bitmain announces next generation 7 nanometer ASIC chip for SHA-256 mining, delivering breakthrough energy efficiency. This one's kind of old. I think I even talked about this before, but it's kind of new on my thing. So here it is. The BM1397 chip combines new chip design methodology and world-leading 7 nanometer semiconductor manufacturing process. Enables faster, cheaper mining for cryptocurrencies that use the SHA-256 algorithm for their proof of work. Hong Kong, 18th February 2019. Bitmain Technologies Limited today announced its next generation 7 nanometer ASIC chip, BM1397, which achieves new feats in performance, chip area, and energy efficiency for mining cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash that use the SHA-256 algorithm for their proof of work. The new BM1397 chip requires lower power and can offer an energy consumption to computing ratio as low as 30 joules per terahash. This is a 28.6% improvement in power efficiency in comparison to Bitmain's previous 7nm chip, the BM1391. To achieve this, Bitmain's engineering team has thoroughly customized the chip design to optimize its architecture, circuit and economics. The chip is made using TSMC's 7nm FinFET process. Oh shit, they're not. I don't even think they're on silicon with FinFET. Anyway, BM1397 is a testament to Bitmain's improvements in chip design methodology and deep understanding of the most advanced semiconductor fabrication technologies. Today's announcement follows Bitmain's ongoing commitment to the development of high-performance computing chips and is a part of its aim to help advance the cryptocurrency ecosystem. Bitmain's innovation enable anyone, anywhere, to mine and benefit from cryptocurrencies. The BM1397, part of Bitmain's growing chip portfolio, is designed to bring a better mining experience and aims to set a new benchmark for ASIC chip technology. The BM1397 chip will be featured in new Antminer models, the S17 and T17, that will be announced by Bitmain at a later date. Founded in 2013, Bitmain transforms computing by building industry-defining technology in cryptocurrency, blockchain, and artificial intelligence. Bitmain leads the industry in the production of integrated circuits for cryptocurrency mining as well as mining hardware under the Antminer brand. The company also operates the largest cryptocurrency mining pools worldwide, Antpool.com and BTC.com. Bitmain technology supports a wide range of blockchain platforms and startups. Interesting. This is just like a PR release or whatever, but I think it's kind of a shot across the bow to organizations such as NVIDIA and AMD, how they've kind of downplayed their participation in the mining space. Not so much with regard to AMD, but or Samsung for that matter. They've been kind of out in the open about what they're doing. But the one that's always surprised me has been NVIDIA. Since 2013, 2014, when GPU mining started to become really a thing, they downplayed how much their demand was actually consisted of miners, and I've always been surprised by that. I'd be like terribly proud of that if I were them. I'd be like, dude, most of the fucking network right now is our cards. I'd be owning that shit. I mean, cryptocurrencies are terribly popular with online gamers. You know, so why try and with the exception, of course, of when they're trying to buy a video card so that they can play their video games better. Then they kind of bitch about us. But other than those instances, why would you want to downplay it? I've read on this show several of their like keynote speeches, like for their quarterly reports and shit like that, and they always downplayed their mining. And I'm like, dude, people are gonna know, okay? If mining ever stops being in as much demand as it is right now, people are gonna fucking know that most of your money that you're just riding in fucking waves of is not coming from AI, it's not coming from video game players, it's coming from fucking miners. And that's exactly what happened. The price on Bitcoin tanked, the price on altcoins tanked even versus Bitcoin. The demand for miners dropped. The number of miners dropped. And so did fucking NVIDIA's stock price, because their sales fucking dropped. So like I said, don't deny it. Own that shit. During Alt Bloom 2.0, as I envision it possibly erupting at some point in the future, own that shit. If they're doing most of their mining, if the miners out there are mining primarily with your video cards, own that shit. Say, yes, I'm 40% of the fucking network out there, baby. How do you like me now? Dance that shit across the stage while you're giving your fucking keynote speech. Say, yes, these people are buying our GPUs hand over fist, and according to our projections, we estimate that they'll be doing so for the next 2 to 3 years, and maybe more after that. So, you might want to buy some of our stock while you can, while it's cheap. But no. Oh, well, we think maybe it's 20-30% of our quarterly sales have been miners, and we really don't expect it to go up much in the future. They're saying that in like 2016 and 2017, all through 2017. They're saying that shit. It's like, dude, there might be a dip sometime in the future, but for right now, in the foreseeable future, at least for the foreseeable quarter, you guys are going to be selling a shit ton of GPUs to miners. So just shut up with that bullshit. I mean, especially when, I go down to Best Buy and I try and buy a decent video card and I can't find them. Why? Because they're in some kid's fucking closet mining Dogecoin. So like I said, own it. When it comes, own it. I'm just going through a couple of my stories here, and I'm trying to find like a contiguous thing. And that's kind of interesting. This one's by Vitalik. Apparently, this one is relatively new. Holy shit. Okay. I thought this was like an old hack or something like that. But apparently there was a major hack, and this article is by Vitalik Buterin. So yes, penis. Sorry, I had to hydrate there. The Bitcoinica Linode theft and what it means for Bitcoin. On March 1st, web hosting provider Linode's services were hacked, resulting in a theft of 3,000 bitcoins from Slush, and most severely, 43,000 bitcoin from Bitcoinica. Well, let's go ahead and click on that. Open tab. There have been 2 major Bitcoin heists before. The 25,000 Bitcoin theft in June, and a 17,000 Bitcoin theft from Bitcoin exchange bitmat.pl in August, resulting in the exchange being bailed out and acquired by Mt. Gox. What is the fucking year for this thing? What is the date for this thing? Oh. Never mind. This thing was in 2012. Why is this posted as new? Let's look at this next article to see where it is. Yeah, fuck these people. I thought that was an old hack. My apologies. It was. Let's see if we can find something new. Jesus Christ. That's interesting. Yeah, why not? We might just do that. And no. Yeah, maybe. Beautiful white paper hooked me up. No. Dow drops 200 points. No, I don't really want to talk about Oxycontin, although that is kind of humorous. It's funny. I do want to talk about it just for a moment. As you may know, or may not know, Oxycontin maker Purdue Pharma engineered the opioid crisis, and now it's getting what it deserves. Let's go ahead and read this article. It probably should be short. This is on ccn.com. Oxycontin maker Purdue Pharma engineered the opioid crisis. Now it's getting what it deserves. This is by Simon Fletcher, News Op-Ed 4/3/2009. the 4th of March 2019. No time. Come on, Simon. Yes, penis. Purdue Pharma, the maker of OxyContin, is reportedly on the verge of filing for bankruptcy as a way to help settle the thousands of lawsuits it faces in response to the opioid epidemic that has caused thousands of deaths and left many areas of the United States ravaged. The lawsuits claim that Purdue Pharma and the secretive Sackler family who owns it used misleading and possibly illegal tactics to have OxyContin approved by the federal government in 1995. The Massachusetts Attorney General's office went so far as to allege that Purdue Pharma engineered the opioid crisis. Purdue strongly denies the merits of the lawsuits, claiming that the U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved labels on its opioids carried clear warnings about the risks involved of abuse and misuse associated with the drugs. If Purdue files for Chapter 11 protection, this would automatically halt the lawsuits and give the company an opportunity to negotiate legal claims directly with plaintiffs under the supervision of a U.S. bankruptcy judge. While reports of the company's intentions to file for bankruptcy have not been confirmed, it is believed that the mounting pressure of the claims is forcing the Sacklers to consider all of their options. With over 1,000 lawsuits accusing Purdue and other opioid manufacturers of using deceitful practices to push the addictive drugs, which have led to thousands of deaths, and a crisis so bad that it is actually recognized as an epidemic. Many observers have compared the situation the Sackler family find themselves in to what big tobacco in the late 1990s. Widespread lawsuits against the tobacco industry resulted in a $246 billion settlement in 1998. For those who are familiar with the opioid crisis few who are familiar with the opioid crisis will feel much sympathy for the Sacklers right now. This is particularly true when considering the fact that recently released emails from 1997 showed that Dr. Richard Sackler knew very well that oxycodone, the active ingredient in OxyContin, was much stronger than morphine. Michael Friedman, Purdue's head of sales and marketing, wrote the following to Dr. Sackler in a 1997 email, quote, "We are well aware of the view held by many physicians that oxycodone, the active ingredient in OxyContin, is weaker than morphine. I do not plan to do anything about that." Dr. Sackler's reply was, quote, "I agree with you. Is there a general agreement, or are there some holdouts?" Negotiator fight. Sackler's face dilemma. Interesting. The public profile of the billionaire Sacklers has undoubtedly been destroyed by the overwhelmingly negative press the lawsuits have brought the famously reclusive family. With that being said, the most recent statement from Purdue Pharma suggests that they may still feel the lawsuits being brought against them might not be as cut and dried as some would like to believe. A statement from the company read, quote, "As a privately held company, it has been Purdue Pharma's long-standing policy not to comment on our financial or legal strategy. We are, however, committed to ensuring that our business remains strong and sustainable. We have ample liquidity and remain committed to meeting our obligations to the patients who benefit from our medicines, our suppliers, and other business partners." Purdue Pharma's chickens coming home to roost. The family behind Purdue Pharma, the Sacklers, have a long history of supporting the arts, with the Sackler name sponsoring rooms and entire wings of some of the world's most prestigious museums. Cynics could view this patronage as the family's not very subtle attempt at trying to positively promote the family name, while its members live the life of luxury that comes with the massive gains of aggressively promoting an addictive drug that has destroyed the lives of potentially millions of everyday Americans, and some not so everyday Americans too. I mean, how many famous people have we heard dying on fentanyl, dying on Oxycontin? Quite a bit. Anyway, continuing on. Those whose lives have been negatively affected by Oxycontin might just get a little bit of succor from the fact that the Sacklers do now seem to be against the ropes, and in a nice twist of bitter irony, one of the people who most actively lobbied for this secretive family to be tried in public court of opinion is in fact an esteemed contemporary artist. It's Nan Goldin, I guess. The artist Nan Goldin suffered years of addiction to Oxycontin, and she has been one of the key figures in shining a light on the Sacklers' major role in the opioid crisis and the vast wealth they have generated from it. $35 billion, which is said to have come from the sales of Oxycontin. It's far too late for the damage done by the Sacklers to be repaired, but at least it appears that some form of justice is now slowly starting to be served. Yeah. The fact of the matter is that you can't have an opioid crisis without supply. And being the manufacturers of it and being well aware of the dangers of it, I'm sure that they could recognize when, you know, they're selling millions of fucking pills to, you know, some town in Kentucky that's got 10,000 people. Really, you can't put two and two together and figure out that you're shipping them enough fucking Oxycontin to get every elephant on the planet high, and you know it's a fucking problem of people abusing your pills. So, like, why couldn't you put two and two together here? You know? I mean, if somebody were to do an actual count of every single fucking pill that was produced by these people or manufacturers working for them, and track exactly how many were sold in the United States, we'd find out that there's been enough of these pills to be sold to give everybody in the United States a prescription, a legitimate prescription of them for an entire year. If not way more than that. And you can't look at those numbers on your sales sheets and be saying, who exactly are we selling all these fucking pills to? How many people are eating these fucking pills that we sold 1 billion on the East Coast of the United States alone last year. Who's eating all these fucking pills? And it's the lack of that perspective on these lawsuits that I think that's one thing, at least in this article, that nobody really touches on, is that you don't make $35 billion selling fucking pills and not, like, look at your numbers and say, who are we selling all these fucking pills to? Really? I mean, that's profit. $35 billion profit. That's not counting, that's net. It's not gross. Gross is probably 2 to 3 times that, considering taxes and all that business. So, say $20 a pill. Even though it's not that expensive. I think it's closer to like $8 a pill or some shit like that. But the point being that we're talking about a lot of fucking pills. And to be able to, point to these thousands of lawsuits and say, oh, that isn't our fault. We didn't create a fucking opioid epidemic. No, you just supplied it. How could you act as a supplier for that many people and not know that you're, like, destroying the lives of millions of fucking people? I mean, that's not even countable as fucking negligence. You cannot be that negligent in your duty to your customer base or anybody else, the regulators. It's just sad. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into some music. I think this one's appropriate. Megadeth, killing is my business, and business is good. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Prong with Revenge, best served cold. Yeah, and so I was thinking about it and like how to tie it all in with cryptocurrencies, and I think this is kind of indicative of the differential between the ideology of the former marketeers and cryptocurrency involved individuals. And so I recalled that there was quite a bit of difference with regard to the Silk Road. And some of you guys might have actually had the opportunity to shop on it before it was closed down. But one of the things that stuck out to me about the Silk Road while it was still in operation was its concentration on harm reduction. Now, considering what we've just read, about Purdue basically declaring bankruptcy to be able to kind of winnow their way out of all the litigation they're facing right now. I honestly don't think that they should be given any relief, and this is exactly why: is that their abuse of the market has been so flagrant and so ongoing that it's beyond any measure of rationale or decency even. If you know that you deal a very addictive drug and you are literally selling enough units of that drug to get the entire planet high for a week or so, I'm talking all 9 billion of you out there, you got to be able to put 2 and 2 together. If you're selling the vast majority of those within a certain jurisdiction, i.e. the contiguous United States, you got to be able to put 2 and 2 together. Or even counting Alaska, because from what I understand, they have some sort of pill issue there. If you've got like 2 million people in the entire state of Alaska, which is bigger than Texas, or as big as Texas. I can't remember which one of those is bigger. It seems to me that Alaska is actually bigger. It's got more square miles. Anyway, point being that there's not very many people there. And if you're selling them enough pills to get all of them really fucking high every month, then you're obviously serving a lot of really, really, really bad habits, really intense drug issues, and not doing enough to try and mitigate the abuse of your product. So it is with that I'd like to get into a little something I found, and this is from the International Journal of Drug Policy, and this is a research paper, Surfing the Silk Road, a study of user experiences. This is by Marie-Claire von Hout and Tim Bingham. Let's see, Schools of Health Services, Waterford Institute of Technology, Waterford, Ireland, Irish Needle Exchange Forum, Ireland. Abstract. Introduction. The online drug marketplace called Silk Road has operated anonymously on the deep web since 2011. It is accessible through computer encrypting software, Tor, and it is supported by online transactions using peer-to-peer anonymous and untraceable, which we found out later it's kind of traceable, cryptocurrency, bitcoins. The study aimed to describe user motives and realities of accessing, navigating, and purchasing on the Silk Road marketplace. Methods: systemic online observations, monitoring of discussion threads on the site during the 4 months of fieldwork, and analysis of anonymous online interviews, n equals 20, with a convenience sample of adult Silk Road users was conducted. Results: the majority of participants were male, in professional employment or in tertiary education, i.e. college. Drug trajectories ranged from 18 months to 25 years, with favorite drugs including MDMA, 2CB, methadone, nitrous oxide, ketamine, cannabis, and cocaine. Few reported prior experience of online drug sourcing. Reasons for utilizing Silk Road included curiosity, concerns for street drug quality, and personal safety, variety of products, anonymous transactioning, and ease of product delivery. Vendor selection appeared to be based on trust, speed of transaction, stealth modes, and quality of product. Forums on the site provided user advice, trip reports, product, and transaction reviews. Some users reported solitary drug use for psychotic and introspective purposes. A minority reported customs seizures, and in general, a displacement away from traditional drug sourcing. Street and closed markets was described. Several reported intentions to commence vending on the site. Conclusion: the study provides an insight into Silk Road purchasing motives and processes, the interplay between traditional and Silk Road drug markets, the Silk Road online community, and its communication networks. And this is authored, I guess, in 2013. Introduction. The proliferation of web-based retailing of drugs within contemporary cyber drug markets is of increasing public health and law enforcement concern. Cyber drug communities are increasingly innovative in their capacities to retail and market drugs, provide information for users regarding drug sourcing mechanisms, advice around optimal use, and host discussions around popular choices, experiences, and harm reduction practices. Widespread drug product availability is fueled by novel drug trading sites such as Black Market Reloaded, The Armory, and The General Store, with the most well-known online drug marketplaces called Silk Road operating anonymously on the deep web since February 2011. The deep web is accessible through Tor, a anonymizing software which encrypts computer IP addresses. This software supports online transactions using a non-governmental controlled peer-to-peer anonymous cryptocurrency called Bitcoins, which is indexed to the US dollar to prevent excessive inflation or deflation. Technical barriers involved in learning how to use Tor software and transact with Bitcoins heightened its appeal to consumers and complicates law enforcement tactics. Silk Road has been described as a certifiable one-stop shop for illegal drugs that represents the most brazen attempt to peddle drugs online that we have ever seen. At the time of writing in late 2012, close to 200,000 registrations and 199,538 forum posts were recorded on the Silk Road forum statistics. The site has over 24,400 drug-related products for sale, which includes cannabis, ecstasy, psychedelics, opioids, stimulants, benzodiazepines, and dissociatives. Christian, 2012, has reported total Silk Road vendor revenue as approximately $1.9 million per month. Vendor authenticity and opportunity to operate their services on Silk Road are controlled by the site through the purchasing of new vendor accounts through auctions to the highest bidders. Silk Road operates similarly to eBay in terms of its professional dispute resolution mechanism, use of vendor and buyer ratings to assist in transaction decision-making, buyer feedback on quality of products, transactions, and speed of dispatch, and hosting a member discussion forum. Barrett 2012. Vendor and buyers are mandated by the site to use the escrow system, which facilitates the accurate calculation of commission fees and assists in dispute resolution between vendors and buyers. Transaction anonymity is facilitated by tumbler services of dummy and single-use intermediaries between buyers and vendors. However, although the escrow system appears effective in policing the site, vendor reliability, and its transactions can also occur outside of escrow, i.e. directly between a vendor and buyer, with little recourse for dissatisfied consumers. Of interest is the dynamic and closed nature of the site. Christian has reported that a majority of vendors visible on the site disappear within 3 months of market entry, with most items available for less than 3 weeks. Vendors can choose to switch operation to stealth mode, whereby they connect with their established customer base by invitation, i.e. stealth, and custom listings, and via out-of-band private messaging. Whitewashing attacks similar to the familiar goodbye suckers response from street drug dealers who decide to retire or move on and rip off their customers when dealing their final batch have been observed on the site, where a vendor creates an excellent reputation and subsequently exits, leaving a large number of paid but undispatched orders. Shipments of products are reportedly disguised by use of vacuum-sealed, professional-looking packages and use of false names and postal addresses. At present time, research on Silk Road is limited to investigative site monitoring work by Barrett and Christian, and a single case study. That was Van Houten Bingham 2013. User experiences and the realities of Silk Road as contemporary virtual drug marketplace remain an under-researched topic. This research builds on their earlier studies and presents findings from the first successful attempt to access the site and interact with its members. The study aims to describe the motives, perspectives, and purchasing experiences of Silk Road users using a virtual ethnopharmacological approach to discover how the Silk Road marketplace operates, consumer appeal, processes and experiences within the Silk Road community, and the presence of potential displacement patterns between web and street drug markets. Methods. Ethical approval for the project was granted at Waterford Institute of Technology, Ireland. The study involved online observation discussions with members and online interviews with a convenient sample of participants agreeing to complete a series of open-ended questions via a private messaging system supported by Silk Road. This approach was chosen in order to facilitate participant talkback at their convenience with full anonymity. Fieldwork for the study lasted 4 months. Prior to commencement of data collection, the research team practiced the use of Tor, Bitcoin, and private messaging on Silk Road in order to achieve a certain level of competence. Following best practice protocols for online research, the research team requested permission from the website administrator to undertake the fieldwork in the form of systematic observation of the site, the posting of discussion threads, and invitation to partake in anonymous online interviewing. Message board recruitment of Silk Road site members was utilized. Requests to partake in the research were posted by the research team along with information around the research objectives, informed text-based content, guidelines for acceptable behavior in the discussion threads, and online referral options. should participants experience difficulties relating to their substance use. The sample was restricted to adult participants over 18 years of age. Participants were advised that their participation in answering threads or partaking in the online interview was voluntary at all times. Participants were not identifiable by either their personal or Silk Road screen name, and anonymous communication occurred between researchers and participants via the site forums and its private messaging system. They were requested not to mention any potential identifiers and advised that these would be omitted from the final integrated data analysis. Participants willing to complete the online interview via private messaging system were provided with open-ended questions and advised to complete these at a convenient time when not under the influence of mind-altering substances. That might be a little challenging for pot smokers. Data collection occurred in 3 ways. Systematic online observations of the site involving monitoring the site and forums using screenshots and postings relating to the discussion thread. Secondly, discussion threads were uploaded in the form of taster questions so as to interact with members and stimulate participant interest and result in discourse. The research team interacted with participants in order to answer any queries and for uploading of follow-up threads. Text arising from these postings and screenshots was included in the analysis. Thirdly, the data logged from the anonymous online interviews via private messaging system formed the final integrated data set. The data was stored on the researchers' computers with double password protection. I think they mean two-factor authentication, but I could be wrong. The anonymous online interview questions were developed in consultation with extant literature, researcher experiences of navigating the site itself, and a unique single case study conducted with a Silk Road member. Author site. Topics were concerned with participant demographics. Oh, what's this? Oh, never mind. Sorry, I got a message on Telegram, but it wasn't for this anyway. Let's see. Topics were concerned with participant demographics, drug repertoires, settings, and concerns and patterns of drugs used, motives for web sourcing of drugs, popular sites for drug-related information, and communication with other cyber users. Silk Road user appeal, Tor software sourcing, Bitcoin purchasing, navigation of the site and its forums, interaction within the Silk Road community, consumer-informed decision-making and purchasing experiences, risk management, and future intentions to use the site. Analysis was conducted on the final anonymized integrated dataset of online observations, discussion threads, postings, and interviews. In total, 168 screenshots, 4 threads, and 1,249 posts and 20 completed interviews were transposed, transcribed, and managed using the software program QSR NVivo 8.0. This integrated dataset was analyzed using a narrative-based analytical method which grouped the data into macro groupings, subsequent themes, and appropriate categories. The identified groups, paragraphs, and sentences were then broken down into several codes of key incidents, concepts, and relationships. Results. Participants were predominantly male, 3 females, and in professional employment or tertiary education. Observational data supported the high uptake of professionals on Silk Road. Participant drug trajectories range from 18 months to 25 years, with popular drugs including cannabis, methadone, codeine, cocaine, nitrous oxide, MDMA, 2CB, ketamine, heroin, LSD, amphetamines. let's see here. NBOME. What's that one? NBOME? Never had it. Methylone, benzodiazepines, methamphetamine, morphine, PCP, 2CI, and psilocybin. Patterns of drug use were described as typically recreational and confined to weekend consumption. Several participants described themselves as psychonauts. Few reported daily drug use. Online drug sourcing, a light bulb moment. The majority of participants reported commencing in internet drug sourcing and purchasing on Silk Road with little prior experience of cyber drug retailing prior to 2011. Participants reported finding out about the site per chance when Googling on national TV programs on Craigslist and in Gawker article Chen 2011. Several drug sites were described as popular sources for Silk Road members and included Arrowhead, Blue Light, Shroomery, Pill Reports, Pharmacy Reviewer, Gwern, and OVDBR. BER. These sites, along with the Silk Road forums, were observed as useful, despite some comments that product reviews were dated, in providing informative trip reports, and assisting individuals with questions around optimum dosage, lab testing, and harm reduction practicalities. Quote, I advocate for harm reduction and the freedom of information for individuals to use substances safely. Websites provide essential information which allows me to make rational decisions about using illegal substances safely. Participant 2, male aged 20 to 25 years. Participants' reasons for accessing and using Silk Road appeared centered on the site's anonymity, its member forums, the wide variety of products advertised, its transaction system supported by dispute resolution modes, and vendor feedback ratings. Comments were made around user concerns for poor drug quality in their locality and fears for personal safety when buying drugs on the street. Ease of product delivery in the post was described. Observational site data revealed member comments around the avoidance of adverse health and social consequences associated with street drug sourcing when purchasing drugs on the Silk Road. Few participants accessed Silk Road due to difficulties in securing prescribed anti-anxiety or sexual enhancement medication from their doctors. Quote, the why is really simple. Prior to using this site, basically every drug I got was a toss-up, especially MDMA. Someone mentioned this thing called the Silk Road. It didn't sound real. A couple of months later, I decided to see if it actually existed. I found it. Took a lot of courage to make that first purchase, but when the mail arrived at my house, I never looked back. Here, drugs are way cheaper and way better. I can't go wrong. Participant 6, male aged 20 to 25 years. I first signed up on Silk Road back in 2011 and didn't order anything until May 2012. I now use it because the quality of drugs is so much better. Silk Road provides lab-tested substances in which I know the quality. I can make a rational decision on what quantity to use to best minimize harm. You know what you're getting, and you can see feedback and honest advice from other buyers of the product. I'll never use a street drug dealer again. I also feel Silk Road is a lot safer than buying from the street in many ways. Participant 13, male aged 20 to 25 years. Silk Road, an online candy store. Several participants observed that the process of accessing the site via Tor browser, arranging credit with Bitcoin, and purchasing products on the site was time-consuming and relatively difficult. Observational site data recorded that members have technical knowledge around internet security. Quote, I obtain Bitcoin. I won't go into the exact process for safety's sake, but basically I go into a bank with cash, fill out a slip, show absolutely no identifying information, and by the end of the day, I have Bitcoin in my Silk Road account. I then go to the vendor page, add the drug to my shopping cart, and input my encrypted address. Then I confirm the order, and I wait. We also use an escrow system so that vendors can't scam you. So the Bitcoins aren't directly delivered to them until I finalize my order, which I only do once the package arrives. Some vendors require early finalization, but I try not to deal with them. Participant 9, male, aged 20 to 25 years. Some participants were not willing to disclose information around their purchasing habits on Silk Road. Others had not purchased yet and were accessing the site forums for information on products. The remainder, with purchase history, described a consumer decision-making process which involved informed decision-making centered on pricing, the reviewing of trip reports, and product detail on Wikipedia, Erowid, PubMed, Google Scholar, vendor and buyer reputations, benchmarking of 98% plus positive vendor feedback, the privacy of stealth modes, consultative activity on Silk Road forums, and positive product experiences. Many purchasers described sourcing drugs not readily available, especially LSD, high-grade methamphetamine, and cocaine, and using Silk Road broadened their drug consumptive horizons. Buyer loyalty to certain vendors appeared based on experience of several successful transactions with receipt of quality products. Observational site data revealed member comments on higher prices for certain drug products in comparison with local street averages in their locality. Quote, "The feedback system is revolutionary for a market like this. All my fears about quality are gone. I know what I'm getting, and I know that it's good. The Silk Road is a paradise for responsible drug dealers. You have to be patient, and you have to be smart to get there and use it." Bitcoin isn't easy to get and to use. You have to learn the ropes, but it's really worth it. It's changed my life significantly. Participant 14, male, age 26 to 30 years. The majority reported that using the escrow system appeared to protect them against scamming. A few reported products which did not arrive or were intercepted by customs and excise, and experiences of poor quality products. Favorable comparisons were made with online pharmacies dispatching fake and contaminated products. Some describe purchasing small taster amounts of chosen products when the vendor was unknown to them. Those with purchasing experience commented that on the perceived levels of insular trust within the Silk Road member communities, which assisted them in consumer decision-making and openly contrasted with the unknowns associated with street drug dealing. Participants commented that Silk Road had for the most part replaced their local street dealer. A few used street and closed markets, friends and peer networks, sourcing when waiting for Silk Road products to arrive. Quote, "I only use Silk Road. This type of market significantly lowers the chances of a scam or buying contaminated products, like Amazon or eBay. I have a market of sellers to choose from and product reviews to satisfy my own requirements before I make a purchase. A street market in comparison is based on a take it or leave it approach, which gives no rights to the buyer. This form of regulation ensures safety and harm reduction for the buyer." Participant 19, male, age 26 to 30 years. Cyber drug consumerism. All participants described themselves as drug connoisseurs in terms of the level of their acquired scientific research and experiential drug product knowledge. A general cautiousness towards untested, quote, novel psychoactive substances was evident and appeared to restrict their drug purchasing to common drugs such as cannabis, MDMA, cocaine, LSD, ketamine, and heroin, which were observed to be safer. Quote, many unscheduled drugs are being scheduled without inquiry, which may be unfortunate. Illegal drugs may be safer, but their unavailability encourages the proliferation of potentially unsafe analogs and alternatives. We've seen that with pot. Participant 20, male aged 31 to 35 years. For those purchasing, quote, novel psychoactive substances, product packaging was described as, quote, research chemicals, with traditional street-type drugs arriving in disguised packaging. Some comments were made that the time investment and concerted effort on the part of the user in having to install Tor, purchase Bitcoin, and use false postal addresses was recognized as potential deterrents for impulsive purchasing and excessive drug use. Quote, I don't think it promotes new users because no one is taking the time and computer knowledge to come to the Silk Road if they've never used drugs before. Participant 1, female, aged 26 to 30 years. Varied comments were made around the security mechanisms in place, with some participants concerned for user anonymity in the future, the fears for computer hacking. The majority of participants reported intentions to continue using the site in the future, with several intending to set up vendor accounts. Quote, the browser is not key. The Bitcoin currency is, since that allows global transactions that are very hard to trace, leaving little or no money trail from buyer to vendor. Participant 1, male aged 26 to 30 years. The Silk Road online community. Observational data revealed that revealed an active online community. The usefulness of Silk Road forums was emphasized in providing information, product and vendor reviews, transaction feedback, forums for harm reduction, tutorials, guides, and book/film reviews. A participant described the site as a, quote, great community with lots of information. Comments were made around member education and know-how, with forum participants appearing well-read and well-informed around drug use, with members sharing advice, stories, experience, and general chit-chat. Site forum postings included member support for those requiring assistance in quitting their drug habit. Quote, the community here is awesome. There is a, quote, drug safety forum. The whole philosophy behind the place is that if you want to put heroin in your body, go ahead, but hey, if you want to get off that nasty drug, we're here to help you too. It's not like real life where street dealers might coerce you into keeping your addiction. Participant 4, male aged 20 to 25 years. Many comments were made around a perceived sense of belonging in the Silk Road community. This occurred irrespective of whether members were purchasing or only accessing the forums. We are a community. The Dread Pirate Roberts is our president in a sense. We're all here to help each other and make our experience as easygoing as possible. Participant 3, male age 26 to 30 years. No participants reported engaging with forum members in real life. Quote, not in real life, but I enjoy talking with them in private messages and here on the forums. I like that aspect as much if not more than the actual service Silk Road provides. Participant 7, female, aged 31 to 35 years. Drug use outcomes and settings. The majority of participants described very positive experiences with products purchased on the site, with comments made around product quality and speedy delivery. Generally, the use of Silk Road was kept secret, with users confining their consumption to inner circle friendships. This appeared largely due to fears of law enforcement investigation. Observational site data revealed that members strive to protect their anonymity for fear of prosecution. This appears indicative of the high number of recreational users accessing the site. Quote, using drugs is kind of supposed to be a social thing in my opinion. I want to experience that love and joy and happiness with my friends. It's a great feeling. Participant 5, male aged 20 to 25 years. Many participants describe using products alone for introspective and psychonaut purposes. Or psychonautic, my apologies there. Mixed perspectives around potential harm were recorded. Quote, solitary use may be good in that there is less, quote, egging on and escalation of dose. Participant 16, female aged 41 to 45 years. Wow. Dosing of drugs purchased on Silk Road appeared gauged by the user based on past experiences. Silk Road product reviews, trip reports, and reviews on Arrowwood, Wikipedia, Blue Light, drugs.com, and Google search for that product or its nearest analog. Several participants described using a similar approach to that of Alexander and Anshulgin, 1991 to 1997. Quote, if I'm ever unsure, I will take a very low amount, smaller than its nearest analog, and note how I feel. If I feel more next time, I will take more. If I feel I need more next time, I will take more. And that was participant 1, male aged 26 to 30 years. Negative experiences of drugs bought on the site were very few, with those participants describing instances where drug potency caused nausea, vomiting, and severe intoxication. I guess that's what happens when you get the real shit, right? Discussion. The study presents an integrated visual and narrative analysis of data gathered from the Silk Road website. Given the illicit nature of online drug trading, the chosen form of observational and anonymous online research was deemed most appropriate, as this virtual community is essentially a hidden and suspicious research population requiring a sensitive and confidential approach. It took time to build credibility and trust on the site. Recruitment bias may exist in the lack of researcher ability to adequately access whether participants were 18 years or older and whether participants were under the influence of mind-altering substances at the time of participation. Despite this, collecting data via live observation and interpersonal contact on the online Silk Road communities, forums, and message boards offers a unique snapshot of the Silk Road member perspectives relating to drug choices, informed decision-making processes, group mechanisms, and consumer outcomes. The interactive nature of the research was deemed a central feature to these subsequent thread discussions, with the research team tracking and monitoring the discussion thread postings and listening to and engaging with the various discussion hosted on the Silk Road forums. This was done in order to incorporate variant drug user perspectives and meanings and maintain the dialogue between participants within an online negotiation process. Asynchronous interactions between participants were observed during the project timeframe, which optimized the duration, momentum, and depth of conversation thread discussions, and which added a richer context to online interview data. The conscious decision for users to access Silk Road necessitated computer access and technical expertise, and was observed to contribute to responsible drug consumerism. This, coupled with time needed to wait for product delivery, appears to exclude more vulnerable groupings of drug users, i.e., homeless opiate dependents. Of interest is that whilst participants appeared to represent themselves as well-informed drug connoisseurs, most commenced online drug sourcing with Silk Road. Members were described as educated and professional, and for the most part confined their drug consumption to recreational and psychonautic purposes, i.e., C. Leary, Metzger, Albert, Shulgin, Turner, 94, Newcomb, 2008. The evident responsible drug consumer identity as distinct from the member's professional identity, see Parallel Lives, Moore and Miles, 2004, appeared facilitated by member anonymity and an active Silk Road community where, once entrenched, members protected by screen pseudonyms exchanged information, product and vendor reviews, test reports, and converse freely around their drug use. Prior investigations have emphasized that members are not required to assume a drug user identity in order to communicate about their drug use. Indeed, online forums can create new pseudo-individual and group identities by channeling physical and social experiences, establishing psychological connections between members, and offering opportunity for social advancement. A collective and innovative Silk Road subculture consisting of both purchasers and non-purchasers was described. Silk Road user groups appeared to exhibit behavioral dynamics containing finely spun norms for appropriate and member-valued forms of drug consumption and harm reduction practices, positive propaganda. In this way, Silk Road, as novel technological drug subculture, potentially minimizes perceptions of drug-related stigma within a communal sense of identification and belonging, supported by distance from previous drug sourcing avenues. Of interest is that whilst communicating and seeking assurances around their drug consumption and product choices, members did not seek out associational relations with Silk Road members in real life. Whilst their horizon of drug taking appeared expanded due to the vast array of products available, participants on the whole remained loyal to traditional street drugs, with customer portfolios including MDMA, ketamine, cannabis, LSD, and cocaine. Purchasing of prescribed medications occurred in preference to online pharmacies for sourcing of anti-anxiety and sexual enhancement drugs, with online pharmacies viewed as unsafe. Participants appeared well-versed in reviewing products, but hesitant to purchase untested novel psychoactive drugs. Similar to extant researcher and drug policy reviews at the time, these participants underscored the need for scientific research into the pharmacology and toxicity of novel psychoactive substances. Dosing was tentative, but informed and engaged prior to drug-taking experiences, reviewing of trip reports of similar analogs, and member forum conversations around optimum use, expected experiences, and settings. Similar observations have been described in underground drug cultures. A displacement away from street drug sourcing and its associated hazards was observed with continued uptake of traditional closed and street market networks when waiting for Silk Road package deliveries. For the most part, These shifts in drug consumerist behaviors appeared centered in Silk Road's capacity to potentially ensure provision of quality products within an anonymous network characterized by insularized trust, buyer protection, and vendor loyalties. The escrow system was viewed as enabling purchasers to avoid scamming and feel more secure when purchasing. The study is of interest to a variety of stakeholders, including drug policy makers, law enforcement, customs and excise, postal service providers, scientists and researchers, clinical, health, and social professionals, and those involved in computer security. Risks and harms traditionally posed by illicit, open, and closed drug markets are replaced by insular online communities interacting within Silk Road's built-in quality of information exchange, anonymity, and community consumer supports. One wonders why these technological drug displacement patterns supported by the deep web are temporary, with this study on member experiences indicating the presence of, quote, secondary motivating factors for uptake centered around convenience, choice, quality, and low risk of criminal sanctioning. On a positive note, Silk Road forums, both for purchasers and those who have not yet purchased, appears to act as information mechanisms for the promotion of safer and more acceptable or responsible forms of recreational drug use. Whilst appearing to consist of well-informed weekend recreational and psychonautic drug consumers, the Silk Road medium has the potential to radically normalize drug sourcing within its member community. Given the accounts described in this study of user perspectives on the realities of purchasing drugs on Silk Road, its members' subcultures offer a viable means of enmeshing safer drug use and encouraging harm reduction amongst a very hard-to-reach and informed drug-using population. The rapid growth of online anonymous drug markets and logistical difficulties and costs incurred in closing down those located on the deep web highlights the need for a shift in focus towards reducing consumer demand and potential harms via site-based harm reduction tactics. Equally, the potential increase in vendor accounts amongst those accessing Silk Road for personal use and consequent closed market operation in stealth modes is of concern. Further research is needed to investigate vendor perspectives on these shifts in online drug market activity. Acknowledgements. With thanks to Monica Barrett for advice around research design and to the participants in the research without whom it would not have been possible to garner an understanding into the Silk Road phenomenon. Conflict of interest? None. And a whole lot of citations. So now, considering the flagrant market abuse that we just talked about with regard to Purdue Pharma, and the obviousness, at least reflected in this report, of an interest in safety of consumers, which would you rather have? Would you rather have legal drug dealers that are free to abuse the market however they wish and do, and have absolutely no concern for the volume of people that they are intoxicating with their drugs, both recreationally and habitually, and for the intended use, of course, or Ross Ulbricht, who at the time was completely anonymous, providing a safety-based, a harm reduction-based online drug market where real-time reviews of the drugs and their efficacy can be provided to the consumer. I mean, really, now think about any prescription drug that you have ever had. When you have received the drug and you were considering whether or not to take it, how much choice were you really given? You were told by your doctor, by your trusted doctor, who as far as you know has no other concern but making you feel better or helping you heal, right? As far as you know. This trusted person prescribes it to you. Says, take these. Take this many of these, this many days, and you ought to be fine afterward, right? And under the capacity of the doctor, of the authority vested therein by his PhD or whatever, or master's at least, I would assume. And so this person is placed in a trusted environment, and we've seen a million times where this position has been abused by, lobbying by drug companies and whatnot, where they're provided with, special dinners, special vacations, so on and so forth, to motivate them to prescribe more people this drug. But beside all that, you have one product review, a recommendation from your esteemed doctor. And so you take the drug based on that, right? Now contrast that with the Silk Road that has real life users who are buying the drugs from the site and using them themselves and providing you with real data concerning their experience using that drug. Which do you think is going to give you a more informed decision? The decision you make based on what your doctor tells you to do, or the decision you make after 2 or 3 hours of reviewing trip reports? Personally, I think the latter. And if we're really concerned with public health, I want the best means of determining which fucking drug to use. I went through this conversation with one of my parents' doctors. They needed blood thinners, or at least the doctor was prescribing blood thinners. And we were talking about the various options, and it really seemed to me that the doctor was concentrating on the most expensive drug and saying, oh yeah, well, that one can do it, but we really should do this other one because, this one's really trusted and it's really well known and it's really fucking expensive. Am I to believe that the doctor was making that recommendation based solely on outcomes of the use and their knowledge of it? I guarantee when we get, if this Purdue thing really stays in court long enough and they're not able to worm their way out of it by declaring bankruptcy, that we're going to find out that they coerced, they enticed, they lobbied, and they did all that shit knowing that people were abusing the shit out of their product. I mean, and really, if that doesn't come up, they're being softballed so that they can walk their way through this shit. And basically the court is corrupt. And we've seen instances of that. And considering the billions of dollars that we're talking about in litigation here, I don't consider it all that out of the realm of possibilities. But I mean, really, we've talked about the moral dimension of both of these entities, Purdue and Silk Road. And we provided a mild perspective on both and the factors involved here. And really, when it comes down to it, I can't imagine that Ross Ulbricht really deserves to be in prison for 2 consecutive life sentences for providing this market that was centered around harm reduction and educated drug use. When we've got Purdue Pharma producing and selling so much fucking OxyContin they can get the entire planet high for probably a week or so, all 9 billion of you, and not really give a fuck about like where that drug is going. And as a matter of fact, encouraging doctors and hospitals to sell more of their drug, whether or not the customer actually needs it. Recommend their drug over others. I gotta think, if this is a sane, rational world, that one of these days a president is going to pardon Ross Ulbricht. We are going to whip out the guillotines and start putting some fucking drug company lobbyists and whatnot in those and lopping some fucking heads. If this is a sane and rational world, I would expect that to happen at some point in the future. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music, just a taste. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't notice how long we ran on that. Gee willikers, I can talk. Well, we're really close to our last dance, and so we'll keep going for the moment. But yeah, conflict of interest, clear in the case of Purdue. But you got to consider that in terms of what we're talking about with the Silk Road. It's a conflict of their interest. If their sole interest is just to sell drugs, right? It's kind of a conflict, or is it really, for them to recommend that people don't just willy-nilly buy drugs. But then again, if you think about it from the other way, that it's market preservation because you care whether or not your users die. If your users die, they can't buy more shit on your fucking site. Apparently, Purdue doesn't think that far ahead, because millions of people have fucking OD'd on their shit. So, yeah, I gotta think if there is any justice in this world, that kind of thinking will be presented in court, and they will be denied this escape route through fucking bankruptcy, if in fact they actually follow it through. They seem to think that they've got a significant enough war chest that they're going to buoy themselves through all these thousands of cases that they're going to be in court for. I'm not so confident. I think that their market abuse has been so long and clearly documentable. I mean, this is a regulated market. If they were able to get away with it without anybody calling into question the volumes of product they were selling, I gotta wonder how qualified our drug policy makers really are, that kind of thing can go on while we're busting down on people like Ross Ulbricht and putting him in prison. And it is with that I'd like to draw this one to a close. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And oddly enough, it seems like when somebody does try and do it for you, we put them in prison. Thank you very much for listening, and y'all have an excellent evening. And as far as our last dance is concerned, I think Skindred is in order. Nobody here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and y'all have an excellent evening.